Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. I'm Jordyn and welcome to my Backlist Readathon vlog. I'm so excited to be participating in this readathon. I know I participated last year and I'm excited to be doing it again because I love being pushed to read backlist books. I'm definitely the type of reader that likes to keep up with new releases. I like to know what everyone's talking about. I like to be able to provide opinions about books that are new, but I also love going back and reading books from favorite authors that are on their backlist, and of course keeping up with my physical TBR, which does include some backlist books. So this readathon is the perfect opportunity to knock those books out. This readathon is always hosted by Jackie over at her channel Jacqueline, and this round she has 3 other co-hosts with her. She's got Aspasia from Asparagus is Reading, who is a good friend of mine and I've had her on my channel for reading sprints before, Kat from Cat Chats, who I also love watching all the time, and then Spencer from Intentionally Bookish, who I will admit I have not watched before, but I'm excited that this readathon introduced me to her. This readathon does have reading prompts, which I will also admit I have not really looked at because I already kind of had a TBR from my own shelf. And this readathon runs from March 12th through the 18th. It is actually the 14th today, so we are 2 days into this readathon and I have not started on my TBR yet. And that's because all of last week I was actually on vacation. My husband and I went on a cruise, which was amazing. And so Sunday was mostly just catching up on laundry and groceries and spending time with our kids since we were away from them for so long. And then yesterday, Monday, was my first day back at work, so it was spent catching up on work stuff. So now we are here, we are 2 days into the readathon, but I am excited to be getting to the books that I want to read. I've got 4 books to read in 5 days, which could be a stretch, but I think I can do it. Let's talk about the books that I am reading. I did mention all of these in my March TBR already, so they may not come as a surprise if you watch that video, but let's see. The first book I want to get to is the most ambitious for sure. It's a very long book. It's called The Enigma of Room 622 by Joel Dicker. This is a mystery book from what I understand about this hotel that has this mystery surrounding room 622. I'm not sure if it was a murder or what exactly happened. This was translated from French, and I've heard good things about this author's other book called The Truth About the Henry Cuber Affair, which was also a mystery, I think. Haven't gotten to it yet, but if I enjoy this one, then I definitely will go back and read that one. And this one, I know Jordyn from Jordy's Book Club on Instagram gave a really good review, so that's what put it on my radar. I loved the cover, so here we are. I just need to read it. It is almost 600 pages long, so a little bit long for a readathon, but I can get the audio through Scribd. So that is book number 1. Which actually I won't be reading first, but is my top priority for the week. The next book I want to get to is very different. Actually, all 4 of the books that I have here are very different in genres and tones and lengths, and just it's gonna give me a lot of variety throughout the week, which I think will be a good thing. But the next one is The Love Hypothesis by Ali Hazelwood. I have read one other Ali Hazelwood book. I really liked it. I read Love on the Brain in January. And before reading that one, I really had no interest in reading any of Ali Hazelwood's backlist. I had just seen so many mixed reviews about her romance books. But I loved the STEM elements of that first one that I read, and I know that this one has it too. The biggest critique I hear about her books is that they're all the same, so I'm really interested to see if I enjoy this one less than Love on the Brain because I read that one first, whereas more people read this one first and then didn't like Love on the Brain as much because it was so similar. We will see. I will share my thoughts after I read it. Switching gears again, the next one we have is This Is Where It Ends by Marieke Nijkamp. This author lives in the Netherlands, which again is very fun because this author is from Switzerland. Ali Hazelwood, I think, is from the US, but we're getting some geographical diversity. This, I believe, is a hard-hitting contemporary book, possibly young adult, about a school shooting. There's really not much more information given on the back. It just says 10 a.m. The principal of Opportunity High School finishes her speech, welcoming the entire student body to a new semester and encouraging them to excel and achieve. At 10:02 a.m., the students get up to leave the auditorium for their next class. At 10:03 a.m., the auditorium doors won't open, and at 10:05 a.m., someone starts shooting. So I know that this one is going to be extremely hard-hitting, obviously triggering if you don't even want to hear reviews about this book. I will clearly warn when I am going to talk about it, but I'm hoping it is going to be as emotional and impactful as it sounds. And then last but not least, the 4th book that I want to read this week is Never Let Me Go by Kazuo Ishiguro. This author is Japanese-British, it looks like, and he's won the Nobel Prize in Literature, I think, for this book. So definitely setting the standards very high. But I have heard good reviews from this book from everyone, not just literary critics. But I read Clara and the Sun by this author, I think last summer, which was kind of a sci-fi dystopian type of book that I really liked a lot of that story. And so I'm excited to read their even more renowned book. I don't really know a lot about this book. I have actually just started this one on audio. I'm only less than 30 minutes in. I still don't have a great grasp of the plot. The back says it's about these 3 children who all went to the same boarding school, and they're constantly told they're special by their teachers. And then years later, we're following one of those 3 as a woman. It says her friends have re-entered her life, and for the first time, she is beginning to look back at their shared past and understand just what it is that makes them so special. I think this has a sci-fi element to it, but I don't know what that is yet. All that I've learned so far in the first 30 minutes is that our main character is a carer as her position, and she takes care of donors, but I don't know what they're donating. I don't know how she's caring for them. I don't know, but I'm excited to get back into this book. I decided to pick it up first because it is the shortest physically, though actually this book is shorter on audio. It's only about 6 hours, but it's a thicker physical book, but bigger spacing between the words. But I decided to dive right into this one because I think I will like the genre and it will read quickly. So I'm going to get back to listening to that audiobook. I do just have my normal workday today. I don't have a ton of meetings, so I should be able to listen to the audiobook for a portion of my workday. And I'm hoping that I'm able to just knock out this first book on this first day so I can stay on track with my reading plans. Later this week and this weekend, my husband will be going out of town, so I will be solo parenting, which will definitely take more of my time and energy, but does mean that once the kids go to bed, I will have all of that time to read. So prepare to see lots of clips of the kids in my B-roll, and otherwise I'll just try to do as much reading as I can and knock out these 4 books off of my backlist TBR, since they are the 4 oldest published books that I own. Hello everyone, it is the next day. Yesterday just flew by. I feel like I don't even know where the time went and never even thought of having a chance to update the vlog or anything. So I'm back with an update now. It is about 9 o'clock on Wednesday and I just finished up the audiobook of Never Let Me Go and I'm not sure I liked it. I am in a weird headspace after reading this book. I don't feel like I got it. This book is interesting in tone, very similar in tone to the previous book that I read by this author called Claire and the Sun. That book was about an artificial friend, like an artificial intelligence almost doll that moves and talks and interacts, and a lot of parents would buy them as friends for their children. So we were following one specific artificial friend as she was interacting with this human child and like learning the kid's mannerisms and how to support the child. And that was a super interesting concept, but it was a very slow burn book, very character driven, and I was just missing a little bit of the intrigue and action from that book. This is similar in that we're following these kids at this boarding school and it's clear that they're not quite normal, but we don't know why. And again, it's just a very slow kind of character study about these characters learning who they are and what they're meant to do in the world. What this book didn't do, that Clara and the Sun did, is define what was actually going on. I really don't feel like I know what actually these kids are and like what their purpose is. And at the end of the book, it just leaves off on a very weird note. Like, I don't feel like I got it. And there was a part where they got some answers from like the headmaster of their school, but to me it felt like they were explaining the why of it all when I still wasn't understanding the what. So I don't know if that's just a me thing and I missed it and it was supposed to be clear, or if that was supposed to be the point and it's supposed to leave you uneasy and unsure of what was happening. But I don't like that feeling. I like knowing what's going on. I like having the full picture of the situation, especially in sci-fi books or speculative books. I like understanding what's going on and watching the characters work through it. I don't like not knowing what's going on and watching the characters work through it, because then we're all confused. So I think I'm gonna give this book 2 stars, which feels harsh for a Nobel Prize winning book. But I also don't read a lot of award-winning books for like the Nobel or Pulitzer Prizes. I don't feel like they're as accessible of books for the masses, for the general public. And so this just made me feel really unintelligent, and I don't enjoy that. This has been adapted into a movie with an interesting cast. I think it's Carey Mulligan, Andrew Garfield, and Keira Knightley, but it was made like over 10 years ago, so they're all really young. I would be interested in watching that, and I wonder if the movie is a little bit more clear in what's going on. And maybe I can also do some Googling about what the point of this book was. But as it stands now, I'm just left with a very unclear, uneasy feeling. So because of that, I think the next book I want to read is The Love Hypothesis. I know that this is going to be firmly set in the real world. I'm gonna know exactly what's going on, and I'm just going to be along for a fun science-y romance, which is what I'm looking for today. So I'm going to pop on this audiobook. I haven't started it, so I can't tell you anything about the plot, but I think most people who are interested in romance at all have heard of this book and know the general idea. So we will see how it goes. Again, after that last book, I'm just looking for something fun and like easy to wrap my mind around. So that is the mission today. Otherwise, again, working. My husband is taking off right after work today, so starting tonight I will be on solo parenting duty, which should be totally fine. And otherwise I don't have much for updates, so I'll just check in once I'm a little bit into the book or have something else to tell you. 1 book down, 3 books to go. Hello, back with an update. It is later the same day, and I've got a big reading update. I read the entirety of The Love Hypothesis, and I did kind of speed through this book. One is because it is exactly what I was talking about, of just like a light romance to kind of cleanse my palate and just be able to zoom through and not have to think too hard about. So it is what I was looking for in that regard. Unfortunately, I did not like it, which is really disappointing. I'm trying to think back to Love on the Brain, which is this author's latest release from last year. I think they might have just released another one, but that's the only one I've read so far, and I was very pleasantly surprised to enjoy that one. I really liked the STEM aspects in that one, and I also really liked the couple, and I thought they fit together nicely, and like their situation made sense. This one I did not enjoy. Okay, apologies if my lights are flickering. This one I did not enjoy the STEM elements. I don't know if it's because it was set like at a university and they were more in... Wow, that's gonna be so annoying. I can't even tell which light it is that's flickering, and now that I'm looking at them, my vision is going out. Oh my gosh. What was I even saying? This one is set in more of an academic setting where they're pursuing their research, whereas Love on the Brain was at like a NASA internship or work assignment type thing. I am so sorry for what the lighting is doing right now, but I'm just going to persevere on through it. I think it's all of them. And I think our town's storm siren is going off. What is going on? I am not aware of any storm about to happen. Okay, what a weird turn. I'm gonna get through this quickly. I didn't like the setting as much. I really didn't like the couple and how they got into their fake dating relationship. So basically the premise is that our main character, Olive, is a PhD candidate. So she's in graduate school working on obtaining her PhD. And one day she's walking down the hallway of her lab or whatever, and her best friend like doesn't want to date this guy because she thinks Olive is going to be jealous, but Olive is like, no, totally over him. So I'm going to go kiss someone else to convince my best friend that she should pursue this guy. And I guess the first guy that Olive comes across is Adam, who is a member of the faculty at this school. And apparently he's not her direct like professor or advisor or anything like that, but it still struck me as really odd that she just goes up and kisses him, and then they start this fake relationship where he's basically like, yeah, sounds good to me. I don't see any ethical concerns with this fake relationship. It felt very uncomfortable to me and took away from the actual STEM elements in this book, because I felt like our main character didn't have any passion, or she was like distracted from her actual passion of her PhD because she was infatuated with this new fake relationship. I don't know, it was weird, and there definitely were other elements in here. Like, the biggest criticism I hear about this book and Ali Hazelwood's books in general is that the guy is always so big, and he's described as so big so many times, and that is so true. I probably could have looked past it if I really enjoyed the plot and the characters otherwise, but because I didn't, I definitely was picking that out just every time she described his hands or how tall he was or other body parts. Like, we got it loud and clear. So yeah, I think I'm finding out that fake dating isn't a trope that I enjoy. I didn't really think it was. I knew it wasn't my favorites, but I think it might be something I'm actively disliking, because to me it just feels so unrealistic. I don't know anybody who's ever considered, let alone entered, a fake relationship with somebody. It just makes no sense to me. So I don't believe it. I don't root for it. I didn't enjoy it. I'm gonna give it 2 stars. So now hopefully on to bigger and better things tonight. And I do mean bigger because I'm gonna start The Enigma of Room 622 by Joel Dicker. This is the chunky one for the week, but now that I've already finished 2 books in 2 days, I definitely feel comfortable diving into this one and giving myself some time to finish it. I do have the audio, so I hope that that helps me still get through it in a timely manner, but I am going to start it probably listening while reading physically so that I really get a grasp of what's going on in this story. I think it's going to be a mystery, and since it's so long, I'm guessing a pretty complex and in-depth mystery, and I'm ready for it. I'm ready. My brain has been cleansed. It's ready to it's ready to latch onto something a little bit more substantial, and I'm really hoping to make up for those 2 2-star books with a new favorite. So that's the plan. I'm gonna go ahead and start it now. I mentioned my husband is out of town, and actually my parents took my kids for a sleepover tonight, which is amazing. Leaves me with pretty much a free evening to myself that I wouldn't normally have during the week. So of course I'm gonna use it to read, and Kendall is doing reading sprints on her channel right now. She's got Liv on with her. I'm hoping they go for a long time tonight and I can just hang out with them, get lots of reading done, and I will check in probably tomorrow once I'm a little bit into this one. I'm guessing I will do a midway update to go a little bit into the plot and how I'm liking it, because I'm not going to be able to just speed my way through this book. So I will be back with an update once I have it. Otherwise, I'm planning on making this just like a cozy little night of reading, so hopefully I can get some nice B-roll of that. Okay, it's later the same night. Sorry for the atrocious bedroom lighting, but I wanted to check in one last time because I have been reading. I did take a shower and stuff, but I've been reading for a few hours now while on sprints on Kendall's channel, and I just hit the 100-page mark of The Enigma of Room 622, and I wanted to give a little bit more of a synopsis now that I'm a little bit into it. I will admit that it still definitely feels like I'm getting into it. This is a long book, and it's clear that it's going to be very slow in revealing things, but I'm intrigued. This is following 2 different timelines. So one is present day or close to present day. I don't know if it gave a year or anything, but we're following our main character named Joel, which is actually how you pronounce this author's name. So yes, the author wrote himself as a character in this book, and Joel in the book is a writer, and he is mourning the loss of his editor or publisher. Yes, publisher. So he's trying to get a vacation, just get away from writing and everything. He's staying at this hotel, and when he is walked to his room, which is room 623, he notices that there is no 622. It goes 620, 621, 621A, and then 623. So he's intrigued. He's like, why is there no room 622? He asks the concierge guy, and he says, oh, it was a mistake in the blueprints or whatever. And then Joel ends up looking into it with this girl who's also staying at the hotel. They find out there was a murder there, and they're looking into it. And then we also get a past timeline that's basically counting down until that murder happens. We don't know who was murdered yet, at least at the point that I'm reading. But in the past timeline, we are following a character who is the heir to the biggest bank in Switzerland. His father died a year ago, and he's all prepared to take over the family bank as the president, and then he finds out somebody else is actually going to get the position. So a lot of drama has come up because of that. And again, it's all leading up to this murder. I'm not sure if it's that character that gets killed or if it's the guy who's supposedly taking his place as the president who's gonna be killed or someone else. There are a lot of characters in this book, but it's doing a good job of explaining who all of them are, their relationship to each other, and I'm having an okay time keeping them all straight. I definitely think it's because I am reading this physically along with listening to the audio. I think if I was just listening to the audio, it would get really confusing in my mind, but having the physical to see the names along with hearing them, it's all pretty clear, and I'm interested to see where it goes. I still have almost 500 pages to go, so hoping that lots more twists and turns and things come, but so far so good. I probably will read just a little bit more tonight and then we'll continue on with it tomorrow. So that is where I will leave you, but just wanted to get that little check-in in before I go to bed. We are finishing up the final sprint on Kendall's channel, and she is finishing the latest Crescent City book, which I haven't read, don't really have interest in, but apparently the ending of that book is a doozy. And so now I'm gonna spend the last few minutes watching her reaction to the ending of that book. Then I'll watch them wrap it up and go to bed. So with all of that, I will see you tomorrow and check in for Thursday and day like 4 or 5 of the readathon. Hello, it is Thursday now. I have not checked in since last night. Today has just been a normal work day, so I don't have too much of a reading update, just a different update. I am in my car, and I don't do a lot of car updates these days because I work from home, so I don't really go anywhere except for dropping my kids off and picking them up from daycare, and the occasional grocery shopping, which is what I'm doing now. I'm at Target. I need to get like diapers and other essentials for my family. Not looking forward to it because it was raining and now it is snowing. So that's a super fun time to walk with a shopping cart in the parking lot. But I also wanted to check in because I got some book mail for a couple of things. I don't buy a lot of books, to be honest. I really only buy books if it's an author that I love and I know I want their new release, or it's a book for a specific video and I can't get it through audio or through my library or something, then I will resort to purchasing books. But otherwise, I get a lot of books that I'm already excited about off of my wish list, or sometimes from publishers or NetGalley, and again, also audiobook services. But I have a new release that I am so excited for. It's The Jump by Brittany Morris. Brittany Morris is one of my favorite authors. She wrote Slay and The Cost of Knowing, both of which were young adult sci-fi books. This is her newest release that just came out this month. I will be reading it next month. I can't wait. I think it has to do with teenagers who enter into a cryptology competition. So I bought this for myself off of Amazon, and while I was on Amazon, I realized that I had some cashback money to use, which is basically like I have a Discover card, so for every amount of money that I spend, I get cash back, which is kind of like free money, and I usually use it on books. So what I also did was splurged and bought myself The Violin Conspiracy, which I do already own. It's one of my favorite books. I own the hardcover, which I love, but this paperback cover I also love. I love yellow covers. I love this colorful violin, and I knew I wanted to own this. I put it on my wish list for a while, but then I figured with my cashback bonus free money, I would just go ahead and buy myself the paperback version. So excited to own it. It doesn't add to my physical TBR, and I can't wait to display it on my rainbow shelves. And then also what I have been doing is collecting all of my 5-star books. Recently, I looked back on my Goodreads at all of my 5-star books, and I realized that there were only like 4 or 5 that I didn't already own. So then I thought, well, I'm gonna make it my mission then to own every 5-star book that I've ever read. And hopefully I can keep up with that going into the future. But the first place I went in shopping for those 5-star books that I don't already own is Pango Books. Pango is not great if you're shopping for like new release books, because either they won't have them in stock or they'll be priced really similarly to what you can just buy it new. But what Pango is excellent for is backlist books, because Pango is all about reselling used books. And a bunch of my 5-star favorites that I don't own already are backlist titles. I have some more on order that might come in the next few days and I will share them, but the one that was delivered is My Friend Anna by Rachel DeLoach Williams, which again, I've already read this book. I did give it 5 stars. I'm not adding to my physical TBR. I'm just adding to my collection of books that I love. This is a nonfiction book about Anna Delvey, who there was also a series made about her on Netflix or Hulu or something, but this is a true story. It's this girl who pretended to be this wealthy heiress, like super, super rich. She was in New York City in her 20s or whatever, pretending to be super rich. And she would take these trips with her friends. She would get investors for this fake like charity organization that she said she had. And she ended up scamming a whole bunch of businesses and hotels and her friends out of a bunch of money. This book is written by one of those friends and it's just her nonfiction tale of how she got swindled by Anna Delvey. And I loved how this book, just the way it was written, sucked me right in. It felt like fiction even though it was nonfiction, and I loved it, so I'm excited to own it. So now there are people pulling in front of me and I feel awkward. So I'm gonna end this clip, but I'm gonna run into Target. Oh, I also wanted to say I did stop by 7 Brew, which is a coffee place that I've seen Olivia from Liv's Library talk about in her vlogs recently, and we just got this new place, so I decided to try it. So, okay, I can clear it up a little bit. So I got the white chocolate mocha, which is my favorite drink to get at coffee shops, and it's really good. So I'm excited to drink this. I will bring it in with me. We're gonna go to Target, and then on my way home, I'll pick up my kids. Gonna spend my evening with the kids. Hopefully get some more reading in. Don't have much to update on the reading front, but I will be back once I have read more of The Enigma of Room 622 and have more of an update to share. Hello friends, it is Saturday night, so time has passed. It's been like 24 hours since I filmed that last B-roll clip, and I don't think I actually even did an update yesterday. So a lot of time has passed. I have just been momming it up. Like I've mentioned, I'm on solo mom duty this weekend, so today was very busy just taking care of the kids. We had a birthday party this morning, which I didn't film anything of because obviously I can't like show other people's kids and they were mostly playing with other kids. But that was really fun. We came home, took some late naps. I took a nap myself, which was wonderful. And now my kids are in bed for the night and I am ready to settle in for a nice long night of reading. I had an afternoon coffee plus the nap. I have more energy now than I think I usually do, but yesterday at this time, 24 hours ago, I was on reading sprints on Rachel's channel. If you don't follow Rachel at Happy Go Lovely Sleeves, she is wonderful. She makes book sleeves, and now on Friday afternoons, evenings, she's gonna start doing weekly sprints reading productivity sprints. I think she's gonna do like shop updates whenever she does book sleeve launches. Those happen Friday nights, so she'll be on when those happen, which was the case last night. And it was really fun, and I made my way through a bit more of the Enigma of room 622. No, I have not finished this yet, so this is my #1 priority for tonight, is to finish this book. I just reached page 400, and it's really interesting. I am thoroughly enjoying this. It's taking a lot of my brain power to pay attention to all of the characters and try to solve the mystery that's going on. Again, it's kind of the double mystery of who is the murder victim and who is the murderer. It just was revealed to me who the victim was. So now we have that checked off, and it's at an interesting point now because the book almost feels like it's wrapping up, because it told us the murder victim. We're actually now set 4 months after the murder. So we're seeing how characters are coping. We're seeing how the investigation has gone immediately after the murder. And it's almost just like it's telling us the aftermath, but I still have like 175 pages to go. So I'm wondering where else this book is gonna go. How is the plot going to continue to progress after the murder has happened and after we know who died? So I'm excited to knock it out. I definitely think that reading this both physically plus the audio is really enhancing my reading experience. I really don't do that a ton. I typically either listen completely to the audio version of a book, or if I don't have the audio available, I just read it 100% physically. I don't often commit to reading it both ways at once. And I think I've already said it, but I am glad I'm doing that for this book. It is certainly helping my understanding and retention of the story, which is good for such an in-depth mystery. It's also certainly taking me much longer to get through it, but tonight is the night. I am going to go ahead and finish this book. My audio at the speed I'm going at has less than 2 hours left, so I will be able to get this done, and I can't wait to share my final thoughts and hopefully be able to recommend this to people who like murder mysteries like this type of book. Technically, the readathon is supposed to end today on Saturday, but I'm not going to be posting this video for a few days anyway. And since I got a late start to the readathon, I thought I would just go ahead and extend this through tomorrow, which will also give me a chance to finish the 4th and final book I was planning on reading for this readathon. I do have the audio of this one. It's only 6 hours long on 1x speed, so I'll be able to speed that up and speed through it pretty quickly. I'll be able to multitask and do some chores and stuff around the house since it'll be Sunday. So I'm really not worried about making the time to complete this. I just need to finish this first book before I can jump into this one. So that is the plan. I have been watching reading sprints on Jordyn's channel from Bookish Gem, so I'm just planning to continue hanging out with these ladies now that my kids are in bed and I actually get to start reading. And I probably will plan on just checking in tomorrow because I think I'm gonna shower and read the rest of this in bed, so probably no more updates happening tonight, but I'll check in 1 or 2 times tomorrow with my thoughts on this book and the last book and wrap up the readathon as a whole. Okay, it is almost midnight. I was not planning on coming back onto camera tonight. As I said, I probably wasn't gonna update until tomorrow, but I just finished this book and I had to come back and update because the ending of this book was incredible. I don't even know where to start. Once it was revealed who died, I mentioned I was wondering where it was gonna go, like was there gonna be anything else interesting that happened? And right after that point, it like sped up and did not stop until the end. There was a plot twist in this book around between 400 and 450 pages. And I was not expecting there to be any plot twist because most standard murder mystery books that I read don't have plot twists. They obviously have reveals, and those are best if you don't necessarily see them coming. But this book has a true plot twist that I was blown away by. And then it just kept twisting and it was so much fun. This is by far the best murder mystery book I've ever read. I would highly recommend it to people who like murder mystery books because I think it will give you even something different. But also if you're like me and you enjoy murder mysteries but you haven't really loved them, maybe this one is worth picking up. The reason I don't usually love murder mysteries is, again, just because there's not usually twists, and usually by the end when something is revealed, there usually isn't a large enough cast of characters to where the reveal is surprising because it ultimately has to be someone. So usually when I make it to the end of murder mysteries, my reaction is like, yeah, okay, makes sense. I can believe that. I'm not really surprised or unsurprised. I was just going along for the ride, and usually that's satisfying to me, but it's not mind-blowing. And I was definitely hoping and expecting this book to have a satisfying ending. I was not expecting it to have a mind-blowing, twisting, just like wild ride of an ending. This book would make such a good movie, and I think it would be great because it would be forced to push the pace a little bit. This is a long book, and it took a lot of my concentration. I'm really glad that I did pay such close attention to the characters because the payoff was well worth it since I knew who everyone was, how they all tied together. If someone went into this book and didn't do that, I definitely could see it either getting really confusing or not being that satisfying, because once you lose your grasp on the characters, like, it all just falls apart by the end. And again, a movie would just force it to be a little bit more concise because this is so long. And maybe it doesn't have to be so long. I definitely am a proponent for like 300 to 400 page books in general as the standard. In this one, I never really was bored, and I don't know what I would take out because it all does seem pretty necessary for the last 150 pages to be what they are. You do have to build it up, but 580 pages or whatever this is a lot. So with that, I am so happy that I read this book. There was a note from the translator in the back of this book that I also found really interesting, talking about the complexity of not only translating a book, which in itself is an undertaking, but this book in particular, and all of the layers and the character relationships, and the fact that it still takes place in Switzerland, but trying to translate it to English and still have like the Switzerland culture and everything make sense. It was fascinating to think about, and the idea of writing this book just blows my mind. It completely puts the art of crafting a mystery back on like the highest pedestal. I don't know how this author thought of this book, wrote this book, went back to check that everything makes sense in this book and there are no like contradictions or things that give away what's gonna happen. It's mind-blowing, and I love the books that like reignite love for books. You know what I'm saying? I feel like I only have a handful of books every year that really remind me that I can still be surprised by books, and I love that feeling. So I feel like I can confidently at this point say that this is probably going to be a favorite of the year. It's only my 5th 5-star book of the year, and we are nearing the end of March. So 1 quarter in, only 5 5-star books. I like that they're sparing enough that each one feels really important to me, and this book feels important to me. So I'm excited to eventually check out more from this author. Not right away. This is not the type of book that I want to read all the time. Even if I loved it, it was taxing. It was time consuming. I also really enjoy books that are just fun to read and quick to get through. So I don't want to burn myself out by trying to read another book exactly like this or similar to this written by the same author. But eventually I will. But I feel like that's enough rambling for tonight. I just had to get this all out while it's fresh in my mind, because tomorrow, it's not that I would forget everything, but I definitely wouldn't be as passionate about it after just finishing. So good night. I will be back tomorrow once I have started, maybe finished, my last book of the readathon. See you then. Hello, I am back. It is actually Monday morning right now. I did start and finish my last book yesterday, but I had to hold off on coming on here to review it because this book is a 1-star book, and I have some pretty passionate thoughts about my review, so I really wanted to make sure I just took a second to collect my thoughts, make sure I wasn't overreacting. I talked to my husband and a friend about this book just to make sure that my weird feelings were valid or like I wasn't missing something. And it's still my opinion that books are completely subjective. Some people absolutely love things, other people absolutely hate the same things. So there's no right or wrong here, but I wanted to be able to eloquently talk through exactly what I hated about this book, so we'll see if I can do that. To start, this book, the synopsis. This is about a school where a boy takes a gun to school and starts shooting. So, of course, off the bat, huge trigger warnings for gun violence, school shooting. There is also mention of suicide as well as sexual assault in here. So massive content warnings if you are considering reading this book or even watching the rest of this review, that gun violence specifically is a huge portion of the book. The way this book is written is actually pretty interesting. This whole book takes place within 54 minutes, and then there is an epilogue at the end, but 54 minutes from 10:01 a.m., which is when the shooting essentially starts, to 54 minutes after that. And it's told in chunks of a few minutes time. So chapter 1 is 10:01 to 10:02 a.m. And then the book alternates through 4 different character perspectives and talks through basically what's happening to each of them for those couple minutes. And then the next chapter, it'll move on to the next few minutes, so 10:02 to 10:04 a.m. again through all of those 4 characters. It also inserts some text messages and like blog posts of what the kids in or around the school are posting at the time. And from that perspective, I thought that was a very interesting way to write this story. No problems there. And it is an emotional book, obviously. To me, this is like the most tragic thing I can imagine happening to anybody. So reading about characters going through this type of situation is extremely emotional. Unfortunately, I was not emotional for these characters. I don't think that these characters were super well fleshed out. After reading other people's reviews, I'm also finding that a lot of people had problems with the diversity representation in here, and that it felt like characters were just thrown in and described as either BIPOC or with a disability or queerness that didn't feel authentic, that just felt like a token kind of representation. And I can't really speak on that because I don't identify with any of those identities, but seeing that other people had a problem with them definitely doesn't help my retrospective view of the characters in here. But what this book made me emotional about was all of the real events like this that have happened and are continuing to happen almost every day within the United States. It was impossible for me to read this book and not think about those events and have actual heartbreak over every single one of those victims. I also, in the school setting specifically, I am well out of high school. I'm not going back to any kind of academic setting, but I have children. So it's pretty natural, I think, for me to read a story like this and get emotional thinking about my children ever going through an experience like this. Okay, please hold. Okay, moving on from that because I can't let my brain go there. But as I was reading this book, I was really hoping that by the end there would be some kind of reason for this book being written. My copy of this book includes an interview with the author that I was hoping would shed some perspective on why this author felt the need to write this fictional book about an experience that is so real and heartbreaking in real life. And when I got to the end, I knew that this author was Norwegian, but I didn't really know about her background. And she did go on to talk about how her school that she grew up going to in Norway was extremely safe. Not once did she ever have to think about real life dangers when she was inside of her school, which obviously is great. I wish every school was like that, and I can't fault her for having that experience. But then she talks about when she traveled to the United States and she was talking to one of her friends and they passed a school bus, they got into that as a conversation, and she learned about, for the first time, all of the violence that happens in schools in the US. And the way she describes it is that she was asking questions, her friend was asking questions, they were just going back and forth with these difficult questions surrounding this situation. And then she was talking about how high school is difficult for everyone, being a teen isn't easy, you're going through a lot, which is fine, feels a little like why are we talking about that in the context of school shootings? I don't know. And then she said, back home, we experience violence at schools, too much so, but lethal violence is rare and school shootings are fairly non-existent. So I didn't understand. She didn't understand how this could happen. She wanted to understand. So she did a bunch of research. Also fine. But then she has this line where she says she can't understand. She'd never been there. She'd never shared the particular fear, but then she says, isn't that what fiction teaches us as readers? In this world between words, we can be the best versions of ourselves. We can imagine and empathize fiercely. Which I have a little bit of a problem with. I don't know. I agree that the best parts of reading fiction are getting to experience things that we never have and never will experience in our lives, especially when it comes to identities that we don't share. I think it's hugely important to read books and try to empathize with people that we don't share experiences with. I feel weird about an author having no experience with a tragedy like this writing about it, and it being the only focus of the story is talking about these characters going through this event. It's that time period and that time period only. The only other book that I've read somewhat similar to this was 19 Minutes by Jodi Picoult. It's admittedly been a few years since I read that book. I think I gave it 3 or 4 stars. I generally enjoyed it. Enjoyed being the operative term, because obviously you don't enjoy reading about events like this. But that book included way more than just the character's experience. It also included the court proceedings that happened afterwards. I think it included some parent perspectives. So it included some perspectives that, in my opinion, it felt like Jodi was experienced in. I think she has a background in law, but I'm not 100% sure, but that didn't feel as weird to me because the scope of that book was just much bigger. The scope of this book is so small, and it's just about these fictional characters going through this horrible, horrible event. And to me, it just feels like it's not this author's story to tell. So I feel weird about that. And I didn't feel any better after reading that. Oh, actually, that was all the author's note, or a letter from the author. And then the interview doesn't come until later, after an epilogue. Nope, after a prologue, which I didn't need, and a bonus chapter, which I honestly just kind of skimmed through. And then there were discussion questions if you're talking about this book with other readers. And then there is an interview with the author. The interview starts with similar questions of what inspired you to write this book, what kind of research did you do? And then one of the questions asked is, what would you like readers to take away from this novel? And her answer is hope. These characters face what may well be every student's worst nightmare, a situation where nothing is safe and survival seems impossible, but it's not a bleak story. There's anger, but also friendship, revenge, but also love. There's family, there's sacrifice, and ultimately there's the belief that even when the world seems to have stopped turning, when everything has fallen apart, the darkness is never absolute. There is always hope. I did not get that from this book at all. Again, this book only takes place during those 54 minutes where the event is happening. That is not a large enough span of time to encompass silver linings or hope that comes out of tragedy. It was just the tragedy. There is also an epilogue at the end of this book that takes place at like midnight the same night. I'm gonna save my thoughts on that until after this last thing that I talk about, because it could be potentially considered a spoiler. But the last non-spoilery gripe I have with this entire book is the last question within the interview, where the interviewer asks, do you like to listen to music while you write? What is your karaoke song? And the author answers, I do listen to music while I write. I have playlists for my books, and I also love instrumental music, whether it's classical music or movie soundtracks or game soundtracks. My karaoke song is Queen's Princes of the Universe. I do not understand why that was an interview question for this book. I don't know what reader is reading this super emotional book and then wanting to know what the author's karaoke song is. That just, to me, seems so disconnected. And I know that, like, at the time of doing this interview, this author isn't coming off of writing these horrific scenes, but that's what this book is a whole book, 54 minutes of murder happening. Why would a reader want to read that afterwards? I don't understand. Let's talk about my somewhat spoilery thoughts for a minute. I don't know if there's too much that I can spoil because the premise of this book is what it is, so you know what's gonna happen. But I will put a spoiler warning up just in case anyone still wants to read this book. or doesn't want to hear spoilery thoughts. But if you have read it or you have no intention of reading it, let's dive into a couple of other things I had problems with in this book. One is that there was a romance happening between the ex-girlfriend of the shooter and this guy that she had been friend zoning for a while, and they were not in the school when it happened. They were outside of it. They were ones who like ran for help, and then as they were waiting for the police to get into the school and to save all the kids, they had a romance blossoming. That felt weird to me. In my opinion, that would not happen on that day. That's not what they would be doing. They would probably be bawling their eyes out, or at least I would. I would have no time for romance if all of my friends were stuck inside a school with a shooter. That's just that on that. And then the epilogue of this book takes place at midnight that night, where they're having a vigil for what happened, which I think is probably realistic for the town to do. And a lot of the students were there. And then there's this moment between two of the characters where they hold hands and I think they smile at each other, and it talks about the bond that they are forming because both of their brothers were killed that day. And I'm sorry, what? The day of my brother's murder, I would not be bonding with anybody. And I think that was supposed to be like a silver linings moment of the book, or the point of the book is that new relationships formed throughout this tragedy. But that's just a little too fresh. It just blew my mind when I read that. I am so sad for all the victims of this story who got no justice, and even more, like, truly heartbroken for all of the actual victims and the actual families of victims who go through situations like this. This just felt very insensitive to all of those people, and like it's capitalizing on this very sensitive subject that this author has no experience with, and that no amount of research can accurately give you an idea of what that would feel like. So with that, I don't even know how to wrap up this readathon as a whole. I obviously read a range of books here. Most of them were not successes. I am very glad that I at least had one 5-star book to come out of this. Let me know your guys' opinion. Would you rather read a whole bunch of 1 and 2-star books as well as 5-star books? Or would you prefer to have them all be just like middle of the road 3-4 stars? I feel like most of the time that's what I read is like 3 and 4-star books, and the extremes are very rare, which makes sense. I think most people have that experience, but this is clearly the other situation where I had some polarizing books here and some polarized opinions personally. To do a quick recap in case you missed the titles of any of the books that I read, Never Let Me Go by Kazuo Ishiguro was kind of a science fiction book that I liked the idea of, but just didn't really connect to the execution of it, and I gave it 2 stars. The Love Hypothesis by Ali Hazelwood is an adult contemporary romance set at a university where there is a faculty member and a PhD student who get together, and didn't love that either. Gave it 2 stars. The one I just finished, This Is Where It Ends by Marika Nightcamp, contemporary book about a school shooting, gave it 1 star. And then the winner of the video, the saving grace, is The Enigma of Room 622 by Joelle Dicker. This is a wonderfully crafted murder mystery with so much suspense and interconnected character dynamics, a twist followed by multiple additional twists that kind of blew my mind and made the almost 600 page count worth it. I loved it so much. I can't wait to recommend this to other people that I know love murder mysteries, and also to dive more into this author's backlist. Whew, and I hope that if any of the hosts or co-hosts of this readathon are watching, they don't think that I hold any of this against them. I definitely do not. I love readathons. I love reading prompts. I take full responsibility for what I fill the prompts with. Especially in this case, I had these books picked out even before I saw the reading prompts and was hoping to read them anyway. So this is all my doing, that I had mostly a bad time reading these books. But I hope other people had success in this readathon. Thank you to the co-hosts for putting so much effort into it. I hope that this readathon continues to happen in years to come because I love knocking out the backlist books on my TBR. And yeah, with all of that, I guess I don't really have anything else to say. Let me know if you participated in this readathon. What did you read and what did you think? Have you read any of the books that I read, and did you have similar thoughts or differing thoughts? I'd love to chat about them. Other than that, I don't have anything else. So thank you so much for watching this video, and I will see you in my next one.